because I didn't want to stand here and talk to everybody for a whole hour by myself. So the panel on paper is called F You Pay Me. In reality, it's called Fuck You Pay Me, because look, it's why I wore this shirt, Freelancers Died of Exposure. Because a lot of times we don't get paid fairly for the work we do, or we don't think we should get paid fairly for the work that we do. And I want to talk about that. I submitted this for PAX West. It unfortunately didn't get picked. So I made the programming schedule, and I get to do it here because I said so. But we're going to talk about exposure. We're going to talk about getting paid and how to value your worth both as a creator and as someone who wants to hire creators, because that is something that comes up. So before we get into the meat of it, I'd like everyone to introduce themselves, and then I'll go last. So.
Hi, I'm Mars Dixon. I live in New York. I'm in a queer rock band called Inaco, and another queer rock band called Mallrat with this person right here. And this is my second time coming to GaymerX.
Hi everyone, my name is Anango Lumumba Kasango, and I'm a producer and rapper who goes by the name SAMMUS. I'm also a PhD candidate at Cornell University, and we're label mates. We're on the same label. It's great.
My name is Manveer Heir. I'm a video game designer. I run my own indie studio right now. I used to work at BioWare on Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect Andromeda, and before that I was at Raven at Activision working on Wolfenstein.
I'm Riley MacLeod. I'm the managing editor of Kotaku, and before that I was a freelancer and had a million jobs, and now I have just one job, which is exciting.
Oh, I'm going to milk that freelance experience for all we can use on this panel, Riley. My name's Tanya DePass. I talk a lot on the internet about racist video games, intersectionality. If you've ever seen I Need Diverse Games on the internet, it's because I was legit mad about them at 6 in the morning before I went to work one day 3 years ago. And now I'm here somehow because people keep letting me come back and talk at things and paying me for stuff, which is why I want to talk about this panel. And the main thing is realizing you should get paid for your work. And I'd like everyone to talk about that kind of light bulb moment when you realize that you should get paid for your work. Be it creative work, obviously if you're going to a dev position, you're going to get paid, but like doing your own stuff. So what was that aha moment where you're like, someone should really pay me to do this? Whoever wants to go first. Don't all talk at once. I know none of you are shy.
I mean, I know for me, like, I don't actually remember that aha moment because I think my father literally just taught me from very early on. I was just very fortunate to have somebody who told me, always make sure you're getting money for what you're doing, that you're valuable, that you have worth in this world, and to always know what that is and push for it. And so, I mean, I worked in AAA for 12 years, so you get paid, and you get paid pretty well in general. Now going on my own is trying to figure out what my own rate is and stuff like that. Honestly, I just start throwing out high numbers and people start taking them. And that's like what I've just started to do. Is like I ask people how much they're charging and I charge more. Okay. I know not everybody has that luxury though. I recognize I'm coming from a very different position than most people.
Yeah.
For me, the moment that I realized I should be paid was when someone paid me for the first time. After a show, I remember the person who organized the show gave me $50, and I was like, what is this for? And he was like, for performing. And I got so excited. I was so excited. Like, you're paying me to do something I love to do? And then I got angry because I was like, wait, I've done this a lot of times, and nobody else has ever offered to do that. And that kind of woke me up. But at that moment was the first time that I thought, oh, money is a thing that I can receive in exchange for doing something that I absolutely love.
Yeah, I have a similar experience with that. Yeah, I've been playing music since I was 18, and yeah, been in a bunch of bands, and I didn't realize that was a thing that you could get paid to play music, and yeah, I kind of learned that pretty recently.
Yeah, I think similarly, maybe in terms of game writing, probably the same as y'all, that somebody paid me enough. Like I'd had so many other jobs that it sort of never mattered, and then once it, like, I think when I was able to write for sites that were like, here's what you should be getting, I was like, oh, who knew? Which is interesting.
For me, it was getting paid for a piece I wrote for Offworld. And Lee was like, what do you charge? And I was like, what? Money? You want money for this? For me to basically run my mouth about a game that I've played way more times than anyone ever should? And then it was other places that, you know, didn't want to pay me. I'm like, haha, I've learned this trick. You should give me money for words. Look, if you let me, I will run off in the mouth about a lot of things, but I would like to be paid for my time. So we're going to get into the practical shit because, you know, there's realizing what you're worth. There's realizing you contacted me either out of the blue or you said, hey, it's Sunday. I would like a piece from you by Tuesday morning, and I know you have to drop everything and write it, or consulting or whatever it is. Because the other thing, too, for me is consulting. A lot of people want you to do that for free. I can tell you right now, if you email me and ask me to work for you for free, I'm going to laugh about you and talk about you on Twitter. Because, hey, my time is valuable. And a lot of people don't realize every bit of work is important. It's not just, oh, I wrote an article, I did music, I made a game. It's consulting, it's other things that take time and labor are worth being compensated for. But I want to talk about, you know, how much to charge, like, you know, especially like for you, Manveer, since you're like doing X for X number of hours, I should charge you, you know, no, I'm gonna throw a ballpark number out, like 20 grand for 2 weeks of work because it's gonna be like all of my time for those 2 weeks.
For me, what I've always done is try to figure out what I think I'm worth per hour, and then try to estimate the hours that I'm going to spend on something, and then usually multiply that by 1.5 times because it's video games and it always takes 1.5 times minimum of what you think it will. And the other thing is, frankly, do I really want the work or do I kind of not care that much? Because if I don't care that much, then I might throw out a higher number to try to not get the work. And if it's accepted, then it's like, okay, well, you're just paying me a stupid amount now. Now you made this worth my time. So like, honestly, I've done that a few times and people have accepted it, which is the thing that you start learning is that, you know, I was actually just saying before we started to SAMMUS, like there's not an industry standard in a lot of different things about what rates should be. And people don't know what the numbers are because we've been trained to not talk about how much we make as people, which is stupid, by the way. Everybody in this room in similar positions should be talking about their salaries with each other because that's the only way employees get power over corporations. I say this as somebody who owns a business. This is not in my interest. It is better for you all to be able to talk with each other. So like that's the way I've always approached it, is just like try to throw out a big number. And frankly, people keep accepting it. I'm just going to keep increasing it until I start getting no's, and then that's where I'm going to see where the market settles. Like, but again, I think the opportunities are probably different because I established myself in an industry first. I kind of did like the apprenticeship the classic way, and it's not the only way to get in. Mm-hmm. So if I was starting out year one like this, I don't think this would be my approach.
And I think from my perspective, it kind of depends on who I'm working with. So as I mentioned, I'm getting my PhD, and while I've been getting my PhD, I also worked at a programming house where I was able to bring in artists. And so that meant that I could use university funding. And so if you're, you know, approaching a school, like ask for the moon, like a lot of these institutions, they just have money to spend. So I just used it as a way to kind of pay my friends for their work, like have them come in, have them do panels, have them do shows. But you know, as someone who performs a lot in DIY spaces or spaces where folks don't necessarily have that much money to give, but are totally deserving of a powerful performance or powerful show, I'll ask for less or work with a little bit less. So I try to in any given month have something that I can something that's based on income from like an institution or like a convention, something that where I can ask for a lot more, and that gives me the space to do shows where I'm asking for a little bit less.
For me, I try to think about like how much time is this going to take? Is a request coming in at a busy time, or can I just say, you know, I've got a couple weeks I can really work on this, or is this someone who wants me to like write an article with like 24 hours notice? Learn the value of fuck you money, which is kind of what you were talking about. Hey, look, have that price point where you're like, no one's going to ever actually pay me this. And if they do actually pay you that money and you know that it's really not going to take you that much effort, take it. I am a big proponent of having a nest egg if you can. And also just have a really astronomical number, because there are going to be people that you don't want to work with, or either through reputation, personal experience, where you're just going to be like, I don't care how much money you pay me, I am never working with you. So have that number in your pocket, And if for some reason they actually say yes, take that money and run. Go do the job, take that money and set it aside. Because, I mean, I have an astronomical number for a lot of people in the industry. But be aware that, you know, not all money is good money. We're talking about if you pay me, but remember, not all money is good money. Because you have to look at yourself after you've made that money. And other people have to look at you too, and we talk. The industry is smaller than you think. So think about that too. Let's talk about, you know, like kind of rush jobs, or even, you know, because someone in the audience asked me before we started, you know, if I'm not a creator and I want to hire someone, how do I determine what to pay them? Because we don't talk about how much we charge each other. How do you determine what I should offer someone to begin with? You know, and Riley, you have freelancers that work for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a kind of a standard offer, but prior to that, how would you then go to someone and say, hey, we want you to write an article, or this is what we can offer you?
Yeah, I think, you know, for us, we have a rate that's can be flexible, but is, you know, comes from on high from a budget. And I at least always try to be conscious of how long something's going to take and what I can expect from someone. Like, I just worked with a freelancer on a review on stuff about Call of Duty, and like they kept not sending it, and so it's like I have to think about like, oh, I'm asking this person to spend more of their time than they should. I think when y'all were talking, one thing that I would say now that I'm in the weird position of accepting people's rates and pitches is probably like, don't be afraid to ask for too much. Like the person that you're probably, if at least in writing, if they're a professional, like I'm never going to be offended by somebody asking for money. Like you know, I'll just say no. So like, I think it's a hard thing to learn. But like, ask for money. Like, I think good people definitely want to pay you. But I don't have an answer to that. We have sort of a standard rate that we can sort of be flexible about. But
does anyone else have thoughts?
If you're asking someone, for me, I think it's just nice for you to even say, like, to even bring up that money is involved, so that I don't have to be the one to say, like, are you planning on paying, or is there any? Will I be paid for this? So if you just say, like, I'm not sure, I don't know what the budget is, or what do you generally ask for, like, that's totally fine, even if you don't have a number. But I have a lot of emails, or I receive a lot of emails that are very awkward, because you know, money is a very awkward thing to talk about, and if the person asking you to do the thing doesn't bring up that they are going to pay you, that's not my. I don't work from the assumption that they plan to do it unless it's like clearly articulated. So yeah, if you're asking, I would just say put that up front. Like, you may not have a budget, but like, what do you generally ask for? Or you know, here's the amount that we're working with, and then that gives me a chance to like figure out what I would like to ask for, but I don't have to be the one to be like, are you going to pay me, please?
Yeah. I definitely get those kind of emails where like, like they don't mention money, but it like I'll have to like take off like work from my day job to like play the show, so I'm losing money there, like, and I'm gonna like pay to play the show. No, like I want to get a little bit of money, like I'm taking off work for it.
Yeah, and since you brought that up, Mars, I want to talk about too, like, you know, what you do is a passion. For some of us, it is our day job. For me, consulting and writing and doing what I do and running a nonprofit is my day job. And I think a lot of people will come to you with like, oh, it's for the community, it's for the greater good. You're like, I love the community, but I still need to eat and have a roof over my head. Let's be practical. So I want to talk about that too, and it can segue into talking about no, because don't be afraid of no. No is a really fun word to tell people, especially in a very professional, snarky-ass way in an email. Look, it's true. I enjoy writing snarky emails. But I want to talk about when people come to you and they kind of want to sideways ask you to do stuff for free, but not really. And, you know, how do you get around like either having a day job and doing this stuff as a passion, or when it becomes your full-time gig, managing that like rate sheets, more practical things. I'm sure a lot of people here want kind of practical advice in addition to the anecdotal stuff we're talking about. Somebody talk, don't all look at me.
One thing that has worked for me is a lot of, even going back to the panel that we had before this, which was about like how to sort of manage a panel, is I'll start to recognize common questions that I receive. And so a lot of folks have asked me things like, how do I book a tour? Or how do I do this? How do I do that? So I have a Patreon page. And for $1 a month, I will upload these little articles that I write up on like how to manage a tour, whether you should look for a manager, like all of these things. I'll answer some of the inquiries that people have for me, and I can send that to folks. You know, I won't just say you have to pay me if you want to know how to do these things, but I might, you know, answer a little bit of their question and say if you want to know more. I've written a whole bunch about this for $1 a month you can check it out. So that's been one way that I've been able to curtail, I think, some of the labor that Tanya's talking about, that you don't necessarily know how to like calculate how it falls into your schedule, but you are taking time and energy to do it. So it does feel like something that's worth, saying monetizing sounds gross, but like you're worth being compensated for your effort and time to do. So that's just one little technique, I guess.
I mean, I could talk a lot, but I'm also the moderator, so if no one else has something to say, I will. I'm never paneling with any of you again. That's not true. That's not true. I asked you a specific question.
What was that? I forgot. Sorry.
Riley. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Since
I was trying to help you, and now
I know. I'm terrible. I thought you knew this. See, now I lost my train of thought. Thanks, Riley. But no, I want to also kind of talk about friends and family rate, because, you know, like, for all that we're advocating for, yes, pay me, not everybody is going to be in the same financial situation. So I've got like a friends and family rate, and then I've got I only know you from the internet rate. I don't know you like that, give me more money rate. So what is the value of that for you, and do you even have such a thing?
I know for me, so I just started my own indie company, and one of the focuses for me is going to be having Black and brown voices be kind of the center of it, both in the employees and the people who work there, but also the types of games we're making, who the characters are in the game. And as a result, and that's because it's a marginalized community. I'm in a point where I don't need to take every job or something. I'm doing well enough for myself. I have a good savings. And so I charge a lot of money when I go to an EA or an Activision or a large company, but when I go to marginalized folks who might not have a lot of money, I will do work for free or very little in those spaces. And the reason for that is I want to boost those up, or, you know, groups like this, an LGBTQIA like space like this. I think my rubric is, who are the people I want to see in this industry thriving long term that are not represented? For me, it's people of color, it's LGBTQ people, women, non-binary folks, etc. And so those are the people I'm willing to do free work for or very cheap work for, or at least put time in to connect them, because I have a huge network, connect them with somebody who could do that work for them in a reasonable way where I can't personally do it. So that's that's what I want to see happen long term, and so therefore I'm going to be, you know, hopefully an impetus of good going forward on that.
Yeah, I think it's a similar thing where the groups that I care the most about, I'm not invested in kind of like extracting capital from them. But if it's like a Cornell University, like, fuck you, pay me.
Yep.
Like, you do have the money. I know you do. I have friends who pay you to like have that money. So again, I think it is perfectly fine to do work for a lower rate than you might normally do for communities that are important to you. And one of my friends, I visited her recording studio last week, and she talked about bartering as like a way to work with folks that she wanted to work with. And you know, it's not the same thing as exposure, right? Where she's actually receiving things that are practical and useful to her that she might actually have to pay money for in exchange for like recording time. So one of her friends helps to like build out the studio in exchange for her doing childcare for them. And so they were able to find a non-monetary way to kind of exchange services. So that's also a possibility if like you're trying to do something for someone who doesn't have the means, but you do think what they're doing is important.
Earlier you mentioned like DIY spaces, and my band tends to play those kind of spaces. Just like those spaces don't really have a lot of money, and like I don't expect to like, you know, leave the show with like $1,000 or something. But if I'm like playing a college, like, yeah, like they have money, and like sometimes I'll get emails from them, and they'll just say, they'll be like, we don't have that much money, but like, what's your rate? But like, I don't know. I feel like the number I'm picturing is like so much lower than like the number they're picturing when they say like we have like a limited budget. And I don't know. I feel like they're like bottom of the scale is like so much higher than like what I'm picturing. But yeah, when we play colleges, like it feels like not. It just like feels strange to like ask for like a big chunk of money, but like they have it. Like those kind of places have it, but yeah, I want to, like when we play kind of smaller, more intimate, like DIY spaces, like those people I want to be friends with. Like I don't want to be friends with the college. Like I want to be friends with like the people like going to these shows and like running these spaces.
Like, how do you steal cis hetero white male money? Like that's like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that. That's what I'm talking about.
And this is why we're friends. But one thing to note with college stuff, because I actually worked in higher ed for a long time, is sometimes ask who's sponsoring the event, because if it's a student group, they only have a limited amount of money. Yeah. But if a department, like someone's like, I almost said CEO, if they're like the chair of a department or something and they're writing you, go triple your fee. I have no shame. I worked in higher ed. I know how much we used to pay people to come in and speak. So have no shame. If you get a higher ed speaking opportunity or speaking event, or especially if they want you to like, be a headliner or the key speaker, quadruple your cost and have them pay for travel, have someone pick you up at the airport, do those things. And I know that may sound like, oh, you're talking all this shit because this is what you do. Anyone in this room can be in that position. I am not special. This has been a lot of work. And I want to talk about that too, because a lot of people don't think about the road from like beginning to where they are at the point where they feel they can ask for money. Mm-hmm. Because even now I get a little weird sometimes about asking for money, and I've been doing this now for a few years, is that, let's say someone asks you to come and be a keynote speaker. That is time where you have to write a speech, you have to make travel plans, you have to do all of this other stuff for their request. So have no shame in asking for the time. Think about how much time you're going to spend writing that speech. They want you on stage for 2 hours. You have to take a 6-hour flight and however many days away from home. All that is calculated into the cost of fuck you, pay me. Because they came to you. At the end of the day, remember that. They have come to you. You didn't go to them and say, hey, can I come to your conference and talk? It's not like you submitted a panel and you're going to sit here for 45 minutes and talk. If they came to you, remember that. Use that as a negotiating chip. And speaking of all of that, I want to talk about the art of no and then networking before we open it up for questions. So I'm a big believer in no. I will tell you no in a heartbeat, especially if you want me to work for free and you're a big organization. So let's have fun with this. What was the best no you were able to give someone?
A couple of years ago, I got approached at GDC, the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, by a Chinese game conference that wanted me to come speak for them. And I speak a lot of game conferences, so I was like, sure, send me the info. And like a couple weeks later, they sent me the info, and I was like, sure. So let me know how you would handle travel stuff, and this is my rates. And they're like, oh, no, we expect you to come, fly yourself out. And I just found as many silly gifts as I could and just wrote them in an email. Just like every single Friday gift, like bye Felicia, fuck out of here. Like I don't care about burning this bridge. I don't know who the fuck you are. You came to me. So that's how I did it. I'm an asshole though.
Yes, but you're an affable asshole. We like you. Come on, someone else beside Manveer.
I guess it's not the best one, but I guess
it's still funny though, right?
Many years ago, yeah, I'd pitched an article to some gaming website about trans stuff, and they were like, "Oh, well, we don't want that, but what if it were more like this?" And sort of through the course of going back and forth, I think it became that sort of like have trans feels at games article and like things that I'm not really into, and I think I got to a point where like even though it would have been a good move for me, I was like, it's just not really like things that I'm interested in talking about, and it felt good to sort of like, I guess, sort of not write something I wouldn't have been proud of because I needed the money or whatever, or needed the exposure. So I guess that's not as fun as sending gifts, unfortunately. I felt good about
Gifts
myself.
solve everything. I'm just going to tell you
Yeah.
that right now.
I love
They
it.
might actually even fix this presidency. Just gifts.
No.
No?
Gifts.
No. I think for me, I was able to use my no as like a way to educate someone. So a younger person approached me about doing a show, and she was coming from an institution, so like a student organization. And I asked her, do they have a budget? And she was like, what? So I said, traditionally, women, people of color, like a lot of these groups, their work is like chronically undervalued. So just for future reference, like you should be asking, what their rate is, or at least thinking about that when you're putting a program together, because you pay for like the catering, you pay for people who are running and sound. So why wouldn't you pay the people who are coming to provide like entertainment for your event? And she said, thank you. She said, thanks for like letting me know that. That's something that I'll think about in the future. So I think there is a way to do that. I don't know how, but some folks really don't think about that. They might be young, or they might just never have had to engage with somebody in that way. So sometimes you can like change people's perspective just by responding in that way.
I'm still learning how to say no. Yes, I don't have like a cool or funny story about it, because I'm still learning how to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard.
It's okay. No, I mean, learning to say no is something a lot of us struggle with. I mean, even now, if someone doesn't have a lot of money, or they don't have a lot of resources, and they want me to do something, and either it's not a good time for me, or the scope of what they want is way above what I'd be willing to do for free or reduced price, I try to be a little gentler than I normally would. But for me, I had someone who kept emailing me about their tabletop convention. I like tabletop, is how I started gaming, but they kept wanting me to help diversify their conference. They didn't tell me what they'd actually done before that. And, when I got to money, they were kind of like, what? It's like, money, pay me? You've already taken up time with this email exchange. And so I didn't have a funny story for telling them no, but I was like, you're running a convention. I work conventions. You can find a budget. When you can find some money, I don't care if you have to go under a couch, call a friend, let me know. Because this is, again, something people don't value. They think, oh, you love the community, you'll come do it. I like tabletop. I don't love it enough to work for free.
I guess like a lot of saying no and the stories that we've all told presume like having the option or having a fallback. And I know, like, I think definitely when I was starting out, like I needed any sort of money I could get. So like maybe to ask another question, like what do you do when you feel like you can't say no to things? Like how do you like deal with that maybe?
For me, I think I always ask myself, is the work violating or in line with what my values and morals are? And if it's not violating them, but maybe it's something that I think is beneath me or that I'm better than, or it's like a waste of my time, but maybe I need the money, maybe it's time to suck it up for a second. I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but like that's what I have done personally to try to justify it. But if it's working with like an organization that was just, literally the Trump administration could offer me $1 billion to make a game for them. There's no amount of money that I would ever put my name on, to do that, right? Like this is always going to violate. But like, that's one of the rubrics that I use. And the other one is like, is there some value you're getting out of it that's maybe beyond the money? Sometimes it's another way to look at it. Like,
That's a solid answer. I'm not. That was good. Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, it's hard because there are times when I've said no where it's like I felt like a jackass later, but it was like the request came in literally like, I'm home this one weekend. This is the only time I'm home. I literally don't have the time. But the good thing about no is that if it's a matter of you just don't have time, you can say, hey, I don't have time. Here's someone you might want to talk to instead, which actually segues into networking. Because a lot of people wonder, how do you find out about this? How do you get paid? How do you get writing opportunities? And that's networking. A lot of what I've been able to do is because of the people I've met doing other things, or someone read something I wrote, or like I met Manveer because I was at GDC with a friend who wanted to get in the industry. I had no interest in the industry, hadn't tweeted a thing and just happened to sit behind him at another panel. So networking is a thing, and I know I can kind of be over it at times, but it's a necessary evil. So who wants to go first about the necessary evil of networking and getting that money?
I'll just say that networks are probably more important than talent, frankly, unfortunately. Like, this is not a meritocracy. Like, who you know and how you're connected and how you can maneuver in those spaces is going to get you paid way better than it is like, just I can make the best game, but I don't know how to get it in front of the right people. Like, the tastemakers, the streamers, all the people with power and stuff like that, you need to know them or know how to maneuver around them. And you need to know how to, hopefully it's coming from a genuine place, but hopefully you're connecting with them in a real way. So a lot of people, I think, misunderstand or don't put enough onus on like how important I think networking is. And you got to put work into it. And if you're not somebody who talks to other people really easily, or you have trouble connecting, it might be a skill you have to work on, or you might have to find a different angle for how to connect. Sometimes some people will tweet at me, like, hey, I've been tweeting at you for a while. Can I come meet you at this conference in person and say hi? And then they already have something to talk to me about because they feel a little less weird than coming to me out of the blue.
Yeah, I would kind of piggyback off that. Just one note that I think, to go back to something that Tanya said first, is that when you say no, that you should do your best to like not kind of lead people on, in the sense that, like, I used to, because I was so awkward about saying no, I would be like, oh, I don't really have time for it, even if I just didn't want to do the thing. So then in 4 or 5 months, the person would hit me up again, like, okay, do you have time now? And it's like, oh, I feel like a jerk being like, I still don't have time. Or like saying I don't have time, and then I'm on Twitter like fucking around later, then they see clearly I have time. So so to just be as upfront as possible, like, I'm not interested in working on this project. Thanks for thinking of me. Here's somebody else. Versus like, oh, I can't do it right now, because that's not being honest, and then you'll just be stressed out like I was. But in terms of networking, I think like online spaces, they can be really difficult to navigate, but it is also where I've done a lot of like meeting folks who have eventually provided me with cool opportunities. It's where I first interacted with Tanya, and like a lot of folks I just kind of like lurk, and sometimes there are cool opportunities online that will pop up that will eventually lead to conversations that might happen in spaces like this. But yeah, I think once I realized that like networking wasn't just like handing out your business cards and being really gross, and that it was actually like building friendships and relationships with people, genuine friendships and relationships with people that you can then like build into something cooler, then I stopped feeling as uncomfortable or gross about that. Like even with this panel, just through conversations, I learned that Mars loves video games. And so when we were putting this panel together, it was like, oh, yeah, Mars should be on this panel. Mars should talk about this. You know, they're an awesome musician and they love video games. It's perfect for them, but that never would have happened if we hadn't had like a genuine conversation outside of just like music stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, networking is kind of how I got on the record label that we're on. Just like friends of friends, and then... Yeah, and then like, how did we meet?
I don't know.
Probably networking.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm a little shy, but I try to say that I'm formally shy because I'm, trying to work on that. So like networking can kind of be hard for me. But yeah, I guess I do like what a lot of awkward people do, just like connecting through Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and like commenting on people's pictures, or like, you like video games, like that's so cool, like, or I don't know, just like trying to like connect to someone like that later leads to like some sort of friendship or acquaintance or something like that.
I mean, I can say that there's people who I networked with 8-9 years ago that now I'm going to. I'm like, hey, I need to raise millions of dollars for a game budget. Let's talk. You are a VP at this company. You have funding. Like, so you never know when they're going to pay off too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just meet people and they're at the same level as you, and your careers go in different ways, and sometimes they get power or access, or they're able to open those doors up for you. So also just look at it as like sometimes there's like the long play, and sometimes you meet people and you meet genuinely cool people, and you never know how it's going to pay off down the road.
Yeah.
And one thing to be careful of, and this may hopefully no one in this room will do this, but don't enter a collaborative relationship with the intent of using someone because we can tell, because users are found out, and again, gaming is a small community. People talk, and a practical thing, and I know people hate business cards. I saw this at a convention I was recently at. Someone just kept leaving stacks of business cards around the convention center. That doesn't work. I don't know why anyone.
It does to waste a lot of money on business cards.
True, but I couldn't figure out why people were suddenly doing this, and it was more than once. Just I'm just going to leave my card and hope someone picks it up. I am never interested enough in any random ass card I see on the ground to go pick it up. Just so
After every conference I go to, I throw away about 95% of business cards. I'm like, I'll remember half these people. Here's the 5 people I remember talking to that I want to connect with.
Find out a better way to connect with someone after a convention or a conference, because, again, I have a stack of business cards and I've scanned them. About 95% of the cards, I'm like, where did I meet this person? What did they want? And, if you really want to work with someone, follow up. That's the important part. We talked a lot about, the power of no and getting money. You have to kind of talk to people to get to that point. So if there's someone you really, really want to work with, or even say, hey, I see we're both going to be at PAX, or we're both going to be at whatever convention. Are you taking meetings? Reach out that way, because a lot of the stuff I've done, honestly, 99% of it has been on Twitter, which is weird to say, because I used to be that person on Twitter. I had to reset my password every year for the one time I used it. Now, unfortunately, I'm kind of tied to it for business reasons. But learn to network. Learn to actually answer your email. And don't have a bullshit email address. First name, last name, first initial, last name. Something that is going to be
Nothing
easy.
at hotmail.com.
I still use Hotmail.
Why are people still using hotmail.com? What y'all doing? You got your GeoCities page too? You gonna show me?
I haven't seen a Hotmail address in 20 years.
I got sent one recently.
Really?
By a professional.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
I guess we do have
Gmail, y'all. Gmail.
I think that,
Yes.
in terms of networking, I also probably owe my career to Twitter, which is a mortifying thing to say. I'd like that everyone said, and I think it's important too, to think of ways that you can help other folks, oh, I can't do this, but someone else could, or I think even when you're just starting out, or even if you don't know, something that I definitely was surprised by when I started freelance games writing was how it never felt competitive. I feel like everyone always wanted to help each other, and I think that's it's super great. Networking can mean going up, but it can also mean sort of going, horizontally. That is correct. Yeah. So help each other.
Yeah, and also, if there's someone you want to work with or think you want to work with, don't talk shit behind their back, because folks talk. And I know this sounds like something I shouldn't have to tell a bunch of adults, but you'd be surprised. Or if someone you want to collaborate with now that maybe doesn't have time for you, and it's probably not personal, don't take it personally. Feelings get in the way of a lot of business relationships, because at the end of the day, it's about money. It's about paying your bills, keeping your studio open, doing whatever it is that you do. And someone, and if it is personal, there's probably a reason that person doesn't like you and doesn't want to work with you. Deal with that. But networking sucks for me, because I'm an introvert. I know that seems weird to a lot of people, but I'm an introvert. I am that person that once this convention is home, I'm going to go home and not talk to anybody for 2 days. Because Samus and I were talking about, it's a lot of people assume that you're an extrovert, that you're very bubbly, that you're outgoing, if you must come and do conventions or be on panels. That is a lie. I know Manveer is not an introvert.
I have moments. I go back and forth. Okay. I didn't used to be an extrovert. I was an introvert. It took alcohol. Facts.
Okay. I can't follow that up with a weird remark. But be aware too that, just the person that you are seeing on a panel, they may be outgoing and chatty and everything else, because we're on panel. I have to kind of somewhat be entertaining, I hope. But remember, in business dealings, someone may be very firm. They may be other ways in which they respond to you. Because I can be silly and hopefully charming on panels, but when it comes to business, I ain't messing around with you. Answer my emails, respond to me, or you become a person on that list of I'm not fucking with you. And I have a very long list now after 3 years of dealing with people in the industry and learning how people don't know how to interact like adults. And with that cheerful note, I'm going to open it to Q&A. But anybody who was here before saw the stream. Hold on, me too. let me get my spiel out, and then you can have the first question. This is Q&A. The Q is for question. If you do not have a question, I'm going to tell you go find one. It needs to be relevant to this panel. If you don't have a relevant question and just want to chat, we'll be done at 4:30. So with that, me too first.
Oh, no, that's a little pressure.
You raise your hand up before I even talk.
Okay. Do you have any advice, speaking of networking, do you have any advice for people who perhaps don't have the means to sort of go to things like conferences, right? Because there's a real sort of privilege component to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to access things like conferences. So what can people who are just coming up, in your view, do which don't necessarily involve having to go to these spaces? Or what are some other means that you might know about how they can get to these spaces?
Okay, so I'm going to repeat for the stream just in case. What are networking tips for people that may not have means to do things like go to conferences and conventions? Because there's a very privileged component of being able to go to a conference and convention. So I've talked a lot. What do you all have to say?
I mean, I think the internet, Twitter, forums, etc., are probably one of the biggest ways. Now, Twitter's a lot different in 2017 than it was like in 2008 and stuff when a lot of us probably joined, where it was a lot, you can make your mark and like kind of make a name for yourself a lot easier then. But there's ways to get into communities like that. There are subgroups of Twitter that exist, like Black Twitter is a thing you can go into, the art Twitter is a thing that you can go into, video game crit Twitter is a thing you can go into. Or forums like DeviantArt if you're an artist and you want to get critique on your stuff. I found connecting that way, and I found a lot of people I've connected with online first, and then eventually met them years later. We've found a way to connect somewhere. We're both at the same city or conference or things like that. Those are the beginnings, but the problem you run into is how do you stick out from everybody else? Because if there's 1,000 people trying to do that, what's your unique position that's different? And that's where it becomes more difficult. I don't have potentially a good answer there.
I would say, again, even with like online spaces, sometimes like fundraising through those means might be a good way to go. It's not the most kind of like secure or stable, but every day I come across somebody who's either in a dire situation or is looking to go somewhere, and I try to contribute where I can. So if you're able to do that and kind of signal boost it, I think sometimes folks are willing to contribute.
This may sound weird, but streaming sometimes can help because a lot of places stream conferences. TwitchCon streamed everything, Mixer streaming some of our panels, other things are being recorded. So in that chat, you might be able to talk with people. There's dev spaces like, a lot of places have dev-only communities or, find people that are writing articles and try to network that way and reach out to people. So if someone has written something or made a game that resonated with you, or you go, hey, I want to do what you did, and I like what you did in X game, article, music. Can we talk about and collaborate? And then you kind of reach out initially that way. Because a lot of the networking I've done hasn't been face-to-face at conventions. There's a value there, but like you said, it's a privilege. And a lot of what I do has only been because of other people's generosity. So I think reaching out, because the other thing is we don't tell people we appreciate their work often enough. And for me, it's going to get my attention a lot more if you say, that thing you wrote, or I saw you on a panel, or I watched a video of something you did, that's going to get a response versus, hey, I want to do a thing, talk to me. So, okay. I know there was a hand. Well, a lot of you have hands. Who was next, though? Because I know Me Too raised a hand. Who else? Was it you in the gray? Yes.
Do you have any recommendations for resources that list freelancer rates and salaries? Like, I know Glassdoor is one. But any websites you go to kind of figure out what you should be charging?
Well, there's freelancer.com.
There used to be a website of who pays writers. Does that still exist? Whopayswriters.com. Yeah, it apparently still exists, which is great.
Yeah, so freelancer.com, whopayswriters.com. Is there anything like, do devs talk about salary stuff?
I mean, I just go to people who have similar jobs, like how much you're making and what city are you in and things like that. And if you have good enough people, usually we're willing to friend DA and talk. But because usually I found some of those online websites undersell like what the salary is or what the hourly wage is. That's my personal experience as a dev. I don't know, writing and stuff might be different.
Yeah. Anyone else? What about for music? Because I'm sure that's kind of a, you're like, okay, well, that was a no.
No, that's a no. I was able to find out through my work as someone who was organizing shows. I saw what people were asking for when they would ask me for stuff. So there's a way, I guess, if you're like able to get on the other side to see what other folks are asking for. It's like when you're putting a show together, and then you can kind of assess from there. But that was my only assessment.
Yeah, and if you've got a rate sheet you're willing to share it. I've got one if anybody wants to see a very simplified version of it. Just talk to people, say, hey, I want to do X. You know, what is your rate? And get multiple sources, because what one person can command isn't going to be what someone else can command. So think about too, is like, you know, find people that are in that same kind of sphere where you are and say, hey, I want to charge X for this. You know, what do you charge? I know, so hands. Okay, so you and then you.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to something that you said, Tanya, a while before, just that not all money is good money, which I think is a really important thing, especially when you're first starting out freelancing and when you're trying to move up. And I was wondering if y'all had thoughts on how to find and define your boundaries with that, like how to determine who are the people and what are the projects that you that you personally shouldn't be working on.
Okay. So for the stream, the question was, how do you kind of set boundaries and figure out what it is you don't want to work on and who you should not work with?
I think maybe some of what you said before is something that you would be ashamed of, or many years ago I was editing a book and I was getting a lot of money, and sort of halfway through the book I realized that it had this, the book like took a turn and had all this incredibly anti-gay stuff in it that I just like didn't know about, and I was like, oh no, what do I do? And I wound up like giving up the project halfway through and being like, no, like I can't do this. And yeah, I think when you know that you would feel bad versus like, I think there's a lot of stuff that I've done. I'm sure everyone's done that's like, oh, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but like, you know, whatever. So yeah, probably your moral compass.
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's hard beyond sort of like that arbitrary, like this feels really bad and this feels a little squiffy. But yeah, I have had opportunities that I know would have kept the lights on for a while, and I just couldn't do it. And it really sucks. It sucks, like, especially when you're like super hungry or broke. I'm like, man, that would have been great. But it feels a lot better to be able to like sleep at night. It really does.
Yeah, I mean, your mental health and your sleeping at night, that's worth something too, right? Put a monetary value on what that is to you, especially, you know, if you're somebody who deals with mental health issues on the regular, you know, maybe you're somebody who could get depressed easily by working on the wrong thing. I think it's even more important to care about that stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't want my name on something that didn't align with my values. Like, I just, wouldn't be able to handle that.
Yeah, and as for the who not to work with, if someone approaches you and you don't know them at all, have no fear in vetting them out to your friends. Just say, hey, this person approached me. What do you know about them? Research them. See if they're Googleable. That's a word. I made it up. Because, you know, there are people that, you know, I, again, know them, have met them, would drink with them, would never work with them. Because, you know, hey, cool, you're in the industry. I could probably benefit a lot, but I don't like drinking poison. And I don't want to be involved or even attached to something that this person's done because of their reputation. And that's what I mean, the industry's small. And if let's say I go to Manveer and go, hey, this person wants to do such and such, do you know anything about them? And he's like, don't do it. I'm going to trust his word because, you know, he's been around. And as a friend, he's not going to tell me do it anyway because the money's good. So have people you can vet unknowns to. Have no shame in doing that. In the green hat. Yes.
So I think it's awesome to have like the confidence to be able to say like this is no longer a hobby, like this is something I should be paid for. But like, do you compare it to other people in the field? Like, do you allow yourself to kind of be like negotiated down, or is it like this is my time, this is my talent, this is what it's worth?
Okay, so for the stream, How do you kind of negotiate yourself down, or do you stick firm with what your rates are and what you're willing to charge? I mean, I know my answer, and it's probably going to be vulgar and rude, but.
I mean, I think most people overestimate their talent, and that includes myself. But that doesn't mean that it's not worth trying to go for it, or trying to push to get your rate up. But again, like I look at who's asking me again. To go back to what Sam was saying earlier, if it's a college or something like that, or it's a big conference, or it's a big studio, I'm going to ask for all the money, and I know they're a billion-dollar company, they can pay. If it is a marginalized group, I'm willing to be negotiated down, or I might even start lower on purpose, just to make it more like a ballpark, a reasonable thing. So, like, I guess that's the way I approach it.
Similar thing. Like I have like the rate in mind that I would charge for like a college, but if they're like, oh, well, that's like a little too high, like, is this much? Like $200 less, like, will that do? And yeah, I'll take it, like, because I want to have like a good relationship with them. Like I don't want them to like think we're assholes or something. Like, oh no, like you won't pay us like this rate. Like, I don't know, maybe that's like slightly like paranoia or something. But yeah, like if the first number I give, they like can't pay quite that much, like I'll definitely like accept like something lower than that.
For me, it depends, because a university reached out, but it was the student group that was inviting me, not the overall university. So the number I gave them was a little high. And I did negotiate down because it was for the LGBTQ student center. And, I'm not that important. I can be like, no, you must pay me X. But it was also benefiting the students. This was like someone that, it invited me, but my initial number was too high for a student group. So yes, I did take it down a little, but if the overall university had invited me, I might have like doubled my fee. But it takes a certain amount, I guess, and I don't want to say arrogance, I'm looking for a word, of confidence to say, I'm worth X. And if you don't give me X, person at AAA studio that has all this money, I'm not going to talk to you. Versus someone who's like an indie dev and has one friend and they're working on a game like 20 hours a day at home. I'm not going to tell someone no for that. Because, obviously if they're taking the time to do better and want to get a diversity consult, something like that, I'd rather help them do better than to go, nope, you're on your own because you can't pay me.
This isn't quite exactly on the point, but it's as a corollary. I'd also like to say, if you put a rate out and it gets accepted all the time, your rate's not high enough. Like, raise your rate.
Right.
Like, just start raising it incrementally, and eventually you'll figure out what that number is. And by raising your rate, that allows you to negotiate down to a place where you used to be or a little bit below that, and it's not as bad. Or it lets you take less for the people you care about a lot more, because you're charging double or 1.5 times to like the Microsofts of the world or whatever.
Right.
I feel like it makes Simone ask a question, but that's rude. I'm jumping away.
Well, you're on the panel. You can't ask.
I had a question.
We can chat.
Would you like to run? What if you ran over there, sat down, raised your hand?
If you did that, I would talk about you so bad at this panel. I know there were other hands. We've got about 8 minutes left. Oh, hold on. So you, and then you in the blue and pink. And then we'll see where we are on time.
Right. I guess, how do you all kind of get into the realm where you get offered a little bit higher, like bigger chunks of money for the kind of work? Because I'm still kind of in the realm where there's like a $5 Tumblr headshot commission. That's just awful. So I guess how do you kind of get yourself into the realm of where people will pay?
The question for the chat was, how do you get to a point where people will offer to pay you more? I mean, my only answer would be experience, and also setting kind of a baseline of what you're willing to take and raising it from what you're getting now. But that's me, and I realize I'm also in a very different position. So does anyone else have thoughts? You stumped the panel. Good job. But honestly, I think it's just really experience getting your name out there, because like I wouldn't be getting offers to come speak if people didn't recognize my work. So it's getting yourself out there. If you're doing art, if you're doing stuff like that, have multiple places you're showing it, but be very aware that, especially for artists in the room, people will repost your stuff and steal it. So also finding a way to make it uniquely yours. But if I'm drawing something that's a full color drawing, there are artist rates out there. You can go, well, somebody else gets to charge like $80 for a full color piece. I'm going to charge $60 because I'm not as well known, and then bump it up. Because your quality will speak for itself and people will eventually know your work. If that makes sense. And we can talk a little bit after the panel as well. Yes, in the blue and pink shirt.
Yes. So I want to know how to deal with the idea of failure. Particularly if you set really high expectations for yourself and you're just trying again and again and again to try to get into the industry. It doesn't really seem like anything is sticking. How do you try to fight that idea of, oh God, I must not be good enough, I'm not doing something right? How do you fight that so that you can try to think of it more positively and keep trucking?
Okay, so basically, how do you fight imposter syndrome is the question.
Something that I always thought of, like especially when I was writing, when I was younger and doing theater and stuff, is and you pitch things and you get rejected, and you submit things and get rejected. Is like I always try to remember that like nobody like owns the stuff I want to do. Like I can just do a thing. It's not like it always made me really sad that like, oh, your dream could be to like be a dentist, and then you could not get a job as a dentist, and you could never be a dentist. So I think it sucks, but at some point I think if there's something that you're really into, like just make the thing or do the thing, right? Like it's awesome to get paid, but like if there's things you want to do, like that should have been more rousing than it was, but like, just like, yeah. But more practically, I don't know, right? Like at what point, I think you keep trying or whatever, but yeah. So, I guess I usually get drunk and get mad and stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't care.
I remember when I graduated university, and that was like 2004. I started applying to like every job I could in the industry for like the next like 4 or 5 months, living in my parents' basement, and was just trying to get any basic job in the video game industry so I could get my foot in the door. And I got turned down from a lot of places. And what I would just do is when I get turned down was I would ask, hey, I'm just trying to get better as a person. Would you be at all able to give me any critique of what I could be doing better so a few years down the road or something, I'm a better programmer, because I was trying to get in as a programmer at that point in time. Most people will not answer that. There's legal liability reasons and stuff like that. But like 2 people did answer of like the dozens I asked. And it was really helpful. They're like, hey, this part of your programming is not very good, and you're lacking here. I'm like, okay. Then I went out and got books, got better at like handling some low-level like assembly code and stuff like that, so that next time I took different people's programming tests, I succeeded at those things. So trying to find a way to get critical feedback on what your holes are and being really honest with yourself and being like, hey, it's not because I suck as a person, so I'm still learning. Look, I have massive holes in my knowledge and stuff, and I've worked for 12 plus years professionally, and there's still days where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how to do this, have I fucked this all up, I burn all my savings. So knowing that that's a normal thought, and then trying to find people who can give you honest feedback and critique. And if you can't get it from professionals, like what I've seen artists do is like they put their stuff on DeviantArt and get critiques to come back. And sometimes they're brutal, but if you can somehow like find a way to channel like the information that's like common and find a way to get better, I think that's one way that you can kind of improve those skills.
And I would throw in, just echo what you said, that imposter syndrome unfortunately never goes away. Like that, folks that I've talked to who are further along talk about their experiences of feeling like they're not supposed to be there, like this is all a fraud and they're going to be discovered tomorrow. But yeah, I think that this idea of like community is really important, to have a community that you can share with, that cares about you. So if they're providing critical feedback, it's not coming from a malicious place, because sometimes you do just need to improve or do need to like work on that skill, but you can't figure out what that is until somebody who has your best interest at heart is telling you. So yeah, and just keep trying. Like, we believe in you. Yeah. Keep trying.
And I just want to say, as somebody who's done a lot of interviewing and stuff like that, if you're getting to the point where you're getting the interviews but you're not getting the job, consider that it might not just be the quality of your work or your answers, but maybe you're a bad interviewer. There are some people who get very anxious, who get nervous. They don't give very good answers. I've been on those interviews where you can tell someone's really intelligent but can't figure out a way to get the information out. Mm-hmm. And people who hire, we have to do a better job of interviewing, but like assume that that's not going to change for your purposes. And maybe also think about those soft skills of like how I can be better prepared or practice, not being nervous in front of people. whatever that skill may be that you're lacking.
And understand rejection is not the end of the world. I just had a piece, kill feed. You know, as much as I've written, as much as I've talked about a topic, I still had someone kill feed because they're like, this isn't quite what we need, and we don't have time to polish it up for our purposes. And, you know, it's a blow, but it's not the end of the world. And, you know, and this may sound a little Pollyanna-ish, but, you know, you're going to get rejected, things are going to happen, but look back at least on a success, and then look at where the failure happened, and try to learn from it. Go, what was the difference between these two things? This thing where I really did well, how did I excel at it, and versus where I kind of failed? Like, what was the drop-off point?
Yeah. And behind every success in my life, there's 1,000 failures that no one saw, or very few people saw. So, like, understand that you see all your failures, but not everybody else necessarily sees them in that way.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that is time. So if you had a question and we didn't get to ask it, we got a little break between panels, but not too long of a break because some of us are hungry and hangry. But thank you for coming and asking good questions.